On my son's 12th birthday, my entire family went to Vegas. No calls, no texts, not even a lazy e-card link, nothing at all. And Jordan noticed. He kept checking his phone throughout the morning like he was waiting for messages that never showed up. I tried to keep things light. I cooked his favorite breakfast, let him open one gift early, laughed a little louder than usual. I also pretended I wasn't refreshing my own phone every few minutes. But the silence was impossible to ignore. This day used to matter in our family. My mom had been there for his first birthday. Camera in hand, homemade cake on the table. Vanessa used to send carefully wrapped gifts, always calling him her favorite nephew. Somewhere along the way, that affection quietly disappeared, probably around the same time I stopped being useful to them. Around noon, I opened Instagram and there it was. Vanessa's story. A rooftop bar in Vegas, music blasting, lights flashing, champagne everywhere. The camera slowly moved across the table, and one by one, I saw familiar faces. My parents, Vanessa, even her boyfriend Josh, who I hadn't seen since he borrowed money and vanished. All of them smiling, glasses raised, celebrating something. Just not my son. I sent a single message to the family group chat. Didn't know you were traveling today. Vanessa replied almost instantly. Didn't want to deal with the birthday brat. I didn't explode. I didn't send a long, emotional paragraph. I didn't throw my phone across the room. I just stared at the screen. I replied with just one line. Then don't expect the trust fund either. That's when the joke started. Vanessa flooded the chat with laughing emojis, then added, "Relax, Grace. We'll manage." My mom reacted with a simple thumbs up. My dad didn't say anything at all. That was the exact second something inside me settled. Not anger, not shouting. Just a quiet, final shift like a lock clicking into place. They had no idea what I'd been doing behind the scenes for years. When my dad's back injury forced him to step away from handling parts of the family's real estate finances, I stepped in. It was meant to be temporary, 6 months at most. Instead, it stretched into years. I handled rental income, taxes, legal paperwork, and untangled more messes than I can count. I documented everything, and without announcing it, I transferred the most fragile assets into a protective trust. It wasn't massive, but it was secure. And legally, it was under my name. If they thought my message was an empty threat, they were mistaken. On top of that, I've been covering Vanessa's rent $1,500 every month for almost 2 years. There was always a reason, just until I finished this script, just until the startup takes off. I also kept bailing my parents out. Last year alone, I paid $9,000 toward their property taxes. They still never paid me back, but somehow they completely forgot Jordan. They forgot the one person who genuinely admired them. That night after we got home, Jordan didn't say a word. He sat on the floor quietly building the Lego set I'd bought him with my last freelance paycheck. I stood nearby, staring at the wall, and made my decision. I was finished. 9 days later, I was getting ready for bed when I noticed a voicemail. It was from my dad. His voice was unsteady. He didn't say much, just that he was sorry, that he hadn't understood how serious I was, and that I needed to call him back. Please. The message ended with him crying. I stood there holding my phone, completely calm. This wasn't about payback. It wasn't about proving a point. It was simply the moment I'd had enough. I didn't return his call. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not even when he texted again asking if I'd listened to the voicemail. I let it sit there unopened. If they wanted distance, they were finally going to experience what real distance felt like. No more late-night panic calls. No more money sent with guilt-loaded subject lines. No more acting like everything was fine while they slowly drained me, as if I owed them. By the second day, Vanessa's attitude changed. The confidence faded into confusion. She texted, "So, are you actually mad? I figured you were just being dramatic again." Then another message followed. "Can we talk like adults?" I said nothing. Friday came rent day. I used to send it before noon without fail. She was used to it. She didn't even say thank you anymore. It was just expected. When the payment didn't arrive, my phone lit up. "Hey, did you forget?" An hour later, "I really need that rent, Grace." I'll get hit with a late fee. Then, are you seriously doing this over a birthday? Over a birthday. As if it was about one day on a calendar, not the years behind it. Years of quietly supporting her life while she jumped from one plan to the next. Years of being told I was too intense whenever I mentioned being paid back. Birthdays and holidays where I handled everything only to be treated like hired help instead of a sister, instead of a daughter. She called twice. I let it ring. Then came the voicemail. Her voice was unnaturally flat, pretending to be reasonable, but I could hear that familiar sharp edge underneath the one that came out whenever things didn't go her way. Look, I know you're upset, she said, but if you're really going to let a kid's birthday destroy this family, maybe you're the problem, not us. I stood there staring at the wall for a long time after that. It was never about a child's birthday. It was about what that day made painfully clear that my son didn't matter to them, that I didn't either. We were just background static, noticed only when they needed something from us. I didn't cry. I didn't lash out. Something inside me simply went solid. For the first time in years, the guilt disappeared, and the silence that followed felt strange but clean, like being in a house after the electricity cuts out and realizing how loud the constant buzzing had been all along. On the fourth day, my mom emailed me. The subject line had no punctuation at all. Families shouldn't keep score. That was it. No hello, no apology, no mention of Jordan, just a long, wandering message about how people say things in the heat of the moment, how we shouldn't get stuck on small issues, how I've always been too sensitive. I didn't even finish reading it. Instead, I created a new email folder and named it When They Need Me Again. I dropped her message in there and archived it. The next morning, Vanessa posted another story. This time it was a close-up of a notice taped to her door. Final notice. Rent overdue. The caption read, "Funny how some people suddenly change." I didn't respond. That evening, I sat down to pay bills and checked the balance on the trust account. It wasn't massive, but it was a foundation. Something solid. Something meant for Jordan's future, not for covering my sister's designer credit card habits or rescuing my parents from their third attempt to refinance a lake house they couldn't afford. That's when I thought about the $9,000. The year before, I'd paid their tax lien in full, wiring the money on a Sunday while my dad panicked on the phone. He promised he'd repay me by April. It was October now. He'd never mentioned it again. So I sent a group message. Short. Clear. About the $9,000.
And that I was done waiting. I sent one final message. I need a repayment plan this week. If not, I'll involve legal help. No more delays, Mom replied first. She said they couldn't pay everything at once and asked if this was really necessary. I didn't respond. That night, Dad called again. This time I picked up. He asked if we could actually talk. His voice sounded tired, like he'd been crying, but more controlled. He said they never realized how much I handled behind the scenes. They assumed I liked helping. They didn't mean to make me feel used. I told him I wasn't angry, I was just finished. I wasn't cutting them off, I was turning off the tap. Vanessa stayed quiet. The next day, Mom emailed again. The subject line had changed. We'll work it out. I'm sorry. She even mentioned Jordan, said she wanted to make things right. It was the first honest thing she'd said in years. I believed it partly. But it didn't change anything. The boundaries were real now. I wasn't just the fixer anymore. I was the one who finally said no. Vanessa missed her second rent payment. No messages, no excuses. Just silence. And coming from someone who once panic called me over a noisy fridge, that silence said everything. She was waiting me out. Counting on the old version of me. The one who always stepped in before things got uncomfortable. That version wasn't coming back. The version of me who quietly covered her parents' tax debt so they wouldn't lose the lake house. She was gone. And for the first time, I didn't feel bad about it. Mom did exactly what I asked. That Friday, she sent the first payment, $500, toward the $9,000 they owed. It landed in my account at 4:42 p.m. No explanation. No emotional message, just the transfer. It didn't feel like a win. It felt transactional, the way it probably should have been from the start. For years, everything I gave was labeled family support. But the moment I asked for anything back, I was suddenly difficult, too emotional, too distant, controlling. Funny how it was never control when they were taking, only when I stopped. Then something unexpected happened. That Monday, Jordan came home with a brand new basketball, one of those official league ones, way nicer than any kid needs. I hadn't bought it, so I asked where it came from. He shrugged and said Grandpa had dropped it off at the school office. Didn't come inside, just left a note. For Jordan. Sorry I missed your birthday. I didn't know how to feel about that. It wasn't a fix, but it wasn't nothing either. The same man who'd completely disappeared that day had gone out of his way to do something, quietly, without an audience. A year ago he would have rolled his eyes and said birthdays were overblown. And yet there it was. I didn't reach out. I didn't thank him. I let the space remain, the same space I used to rush in to fill. They were adjusting to the new rules. So was I that week. I updated my resume, not for more side work. For real jobs. These were jobs I'd always convinced myself I couldn't take, because my parents might need me, or Vanessa was struggling again, or Jordan had to come first. But Jordan was growing and I was burning years keeping everyone else steady while I stalled. I quietly applied to 3 companies, told no one. I stopped checking my phone nonstop. One evening, I bought a cheap paint set on clearance and sat at the kitchen table after Jordan fell asleep. I hadn't painted since college. I wasn't sure why I started, maybe just to see if that part of me was still there. Jordan peeked over my shoulder and said, "Wow, Mom, that's actually good." The next day, I cleaned out the guest room closet stuffed with old family paperwork, rent logs, legal copies. Problems I'd handled in silence. I boxed it all up and set it aside. I wasn't managing their lives anymore. Thursday night, Vanessa finally reached out, not with a text but a voice note. No sarcasm, just tired honesty. She admitted she'd leaned on me too much because I never said no. Then she surprised me. She de-applied to 2 real jobs, not dreams, just stable work. She said it was time to stop pretending things would fix themselves. That was all. No drama, no excuses, just the truth. And for the first time, it felt real. It might have been the first honest thing she'd said to me in years. And that's when it clicked. She didn't start changing until I stopped carrying her. Sometimes you think you have to fix everyone first, but really, you just step back and let reality do its job. For the first time in a long while, I could see who I was without being drained by everyone else. And now, they were the ones adjusting. By the 3rd week, the silence felt different, not tense. Not hostile, just respectful. My phone stopped feeling like a war zone. No late-night crises, no guilt-laced messages. It was like someone finally lowered the noise and I could breathe again. Mom sent the next $500 right on schedule. No commentary, no emotional strings, just the payment. That alone made me pause. Vanessa stayed quiet, but I noticed her post. No drama, no captions begging for attention. Just a photo in office clothes, first interview in years. I didn't react, but it stayed with me. Then came the moment I didn't expect. Saturday morning, mid-coffee, messy hair, still in sweats, the doorbell rang. I assumed it was a delivery. Jordan was still asleep. I peeked through the window and froze. My parents were standing on the porch, neatly dressed, holding 2 coffees and a gift bag. Mom looked uneasy. Dad looked tired, not weak, just honest. Like someone done pretending, I opened the door slowly. No one spoke. Mom handed me a gift bag. "It's for Jordan. We should have been there." I took it, unsure. Then Dad pulled out an envelope, my name. Inside was $2,000. I started to protest, but he stopped me. He said I asked for repayment and they were done delaying. No excuses. They didn't ask to come in. No hugs. No emotional reset. Just said they were trying to make it right and left. I stood there for a while, stunned. Not because of the money, but because for once they treated me like a person, not a backup plan. That night, Jordan opened the gift. A signed jersey from his favorite player, officially authenticated. I don't know how they managed it. All I know is he held it like it was priceless. When I told him it was from his grandparents, he smiled and hung it above his bed like it had always belonged there. Later, after he fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with my cheap paint set, swirling colors in a cup of water. Then my phone buzzed. A notification from the property app Ray, one of the long-term tenants, had filed an urgent plumbing request. I froze. I'd officially handed that account back to my parents the week before, quietly, no announcement. Now the maintenance ticket was marked complete, plumbing fixed, tenant refunded. Handled by Tom and Diane. No calls, no questions, no just log in one last time. They de-managed it themselves. I stared at the screen longer than I expected. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel proven right. I just felt lighter, like a weight I hadn't noticed was finally gone. That night, while locking up, I checked the mailbox. Inside was a handwritten letter. No return address. It was from Vanessa. One page, simple, no decorations, just her writing, something I hadn't seen in years. She wrote that she'd already apologized but needed to do it properly. That I'd held everything together, and she treated that like an obligation instead of a gift. She wasn't asking for rent or anything. She just wanted to earn her place back. I didn't need to reply. She only wanted me to know she finally understood. I sat on the edge of the bed, letter in hand, hands slightly shaking, because it wasn't just them changing anymore. I was too. The next payment came early, Thursday, another $500, memo line, payment 318. I stared at it for a moment before it sank in. My mother had never been early for anything in her life.